I have to admit, I thought it was easier than it was. I was shocked that after going to business schools and doing all kinds of stuff that I actually thought it was more rote than it is. And it's not. Your guts will be tested. There is nothing easy about it, especially today. And one of the things we found out is that unless you're on the brink of bankruptcy, you really don't understand what it takes to build something. There is no we made it. And if you did, that was one moment in time over one period of time. The amount of tenacity that it takes to constantly keep in front of it is absolutely undaunting some days, and it's changed radically over the last 10 years. The amount of regulatory compliance stuff that we all have to play with is mind-boggling. And my fear is most people, unless you're, you could have the best idea known to man, but if you don't have to, if you don't have understand the compliance and regulatory and cash flow and many of the other elements around, it's a moot point. So over time, it really doesn't matter what your product is. What it really matters is, did you build the right team? Did you have a pretty good vision of what you're doing? Until you're profitable, no one cares. Your product could be great, customers could be beloved. The first question that's usually asked of me, by the way, is, do you still have your original investment dollars? Or do you have to go back to the well? Because what that says is you didn't plan correctly. So when I go and ask people about the business on there, I want to know, did you have to go to the well again? Did you have to bring in some outside money? Because that means you either didn't plan correctly or your product wasn't quite there or something else happened. And the reason you have to ask those questions is, if they couldn't get that right, what makes you think they got it right going forward? So when we're asked that question, I'm always proud to tell them that we have our original investment dollars, we are profitable, and things seem to be working. I would also tell you that it doesn't always come out the way you thought it did, but that's where tenacity and listening come into play. We realized that we had a chance to get an all-star team together, and our thought was, I don't want two of the same. Two movies that I absolutely love, The Magnificent Seven and The Dirty Dozen, is that show up with something. Tell me you're good with grenades, tell me you're good with a whip, tell me you're good with a knife, but show up with some skill set. I don't care if you're an introvert or an extrovert. You got to figure out how to pull from everybody. And the thing we realized over time, some people come on with a knowledge, and what you really got to watch out for, some people will come in and they're able to take a what we call a stair step, one or two forward, or maybe one or two back. But if you don't get people at the right time coming through when you're building your team, you've layered yourself where after you have to build for success. By the time you've hit the second step up, some people can't go to the next step. Doesn't mean they're not good, doesn't mean they're bad, but it means they may not go to the next level. And if you haven't innately allowed it to where you're keeping the next progressive person from coming up, your company's in trouble. Because you're going to run across your own created glass ceiling, because you'll think about the loyalty aspect, you'll think about the rest, and the truth is, somebody may be keeping somebody more skillful from moving up. So you really have to watch how you build it and what the philosophy of the company is to move forward. But the other part of it is you have to build a team, and you can't have too much of one person or another. So you have to have just a few entrepreneurs, you have to have builders, and you have to have maintainers. And if that gets out of balance, you're in trouble. Transferred from a college, a smaller college, went to a larger college, and I showed up as a sophomore year and went to one of the local parties they were having, and I wasn't part of the Greek system. I didn't even know anything about the Greek system. I showed up and with all these other kids there. Long story short, we realized that if you weren't in a group, it was very hard to go through, and I thought, you know what, well, let's start our own. So we literally started the largest off-campus fraternity going. We put on huge parties. We understood how to do it. We understood how to get people involved. And the last party we put on, 3,000 kids showed up. We raised $15,000. We bought our own house. Appreciate this. We literally, by the way, by the time we put on our 10th or 15th party, we had quite a reputation. But what you find out in that part of business is you have to understand your cost of acquisition, which means that most people don't understand how to buy raw material or buy something, and you have to eliminate a wholesaler or retailer where possible. Yeah. If you're not going directly to the manufacturer, concentrate on the end user, your margins won't be good enough to sustain any long-term go at it. You got to have the enthusiasm to keep learning. And when you get your butt handed to you, what you will, compliment the person that did it, figure out some of their ideas, take your group back in and say, gosh, I saw something today, and get them enthused about it. We
still working
made some
on?
mistakes on people. We as much background checks as you'll do on key personnel coming in. We looked at their backgrounds. We talked. We looked at it. Some people handle pressure differently, and you always got to watch out how people react during pressure times. Everybody reacts pretty good when times are great and you got a pocket full of money. Watch how they react when they're having trouble at home. They're going through divorce. They may have medical issues going on top of it. And the problem with it is that's just the way it is. You have to figure out how to take your team through that. And many cases, it's if you get that two out of balance, it puts a lot of pressure on everybody else. The other part is in this last 3-year period of time, no one saw the economy going the way it did. We anticipated we're very conservative in how we approached about it, so we didn't spend money before we had it. But had we leaned a little bit too much, put a little bit too much into, call it marketing, and other areas, we wouldn't have made the trip. Because one of the reasons, we usually make money off money. We affectionately basically say that I don't care what the product is, could be a phone, piece of paper, doesn't matter what it is. We buy 98-cent dollars and we sell it for $1.02. Doesn't matter if it's a spoon or a piece of carpet. The problem with it is the cost of money. A lot of people miss that year in school. You really have to understand cash management, treasury, and you have to be able to borrow money against yourself before someone else. And the people don't bake in the cost of money and the cost of acquisition to what it took to establish a revenue flow. And then a lot of times they don't understand organic growth.
Okay.
Meeting people with ideas. People tell you get a job that's a hobby. I don't know if all of us are fortunate enough to do that, but if you can't get that, get something that's at least interesting. My attitude is college never stops. I mean, I'm in college right now, and as far as I'm concerned, because you've never arrived. I can't tell you how many people don't walk down, and I could be a lawyer, that somebody doesn't walk by and spend a few minutes with their own CFO, and the CFO doesn't spend time with the head of sales, and the head of sales doesn't spend time with ops. Why not? They're right down the hall from you. Go spend the time and learn the rest of it, and then go out and look at your product from your client's perspective, because it will shock you. It's when the client thanks you for services rendered, whatever that may be. When they look and they go, boy, we're glad we picked you. And then they tell you why. And by the way, their reason why is many times different than your reason why. And that's when you have to listen, because what you thought you were building and what you thought was great may be completely different from why someone said it was great, and that's what happened to us. They literally came in and they educated us to our own product and taught us how to sell our product better than we did. And it was a great time, because it was a fairly large, and we competed against, we were the little one, and it was us competing against like Bank of America and around here Metavante, which is a large processor, and we were the smallest company, the smallest technology with the smallest bank, going head to head with people that flew in on their corporate jets, and we're driving down to Chicago in our little Yugos, trying to compete against the big boys and girls, and we won because we had a better message, we built a better product, and thank God that the CEO at the time that was comparing and looking at the products looked at us and knew that our team was more adamant on what they built than the other team that was there. It gave a go of it, and we took off from there.